Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I am your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all of my buds. And today we are joined by an awesome bud today, Mr. Smithel Gaming. I mean, Chris, it's one of them. We just had this conversation before we started recording. I'm going to throw all the names at you. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm wonderful. I'm glad that we made it a full 5 seconds before we started to get the name going on. But it's fine. Like I said, I use them all, so I'm happy to go by whatever comes off everybody's tongue here. But hey, I'm good to be here. Thanks for having me. No,
absolutely. You know, this has been kind of a long time coming. I had been a part of your Commoner League at one point. We got to hang out at in Indy. And, I just, it's just like all the Pittsburgh crew is just so much fun. And I just love hanging out with you guys. You guys are wild. So, it's just like, get some Pittsburgh people on here. It's a lot of fun. We had Sin, not too long ago. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. But we're going to talk all kinds of stuff about Commoner, community stuff. And, we're going to have a good time and keep it pretty fun and casual. But before we do all that, I do want to shout out to the Patreon, which you can check in the show notes in my link tree. It helps keep the mics hot and the lights on. We're doing a brand new series on, not on there, but on YouTube with patrons, right? So it's called Cracking Six and Making Picks. Basically, I have a patron on to chat with me while I open 6 packs, and then we kind of chat about how would the seal pulled go, what would we build, and then I afterwards I even put the deck on February and put it in the show notes so people can kind of check it out. It's a lot of fun. I implore people to check that out. And also, you get some bonus apps, and then you get a brand new Romping Club membership card, which gives you access to the Patreon or patron only channel in the Buds Discord, which the Buds Discord is a server that is open to everyone, and I implore people to check that out as well. And finally, the YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, give us the old like, comment, subscribe. Everything helps. If you're just listening on Spotify or whatever, go over and check it out. Every subscriber helps, and eventually, when we hit 500 subscribers, I'll be doing a full adult Levia cosplay, and Gary, aka Mr. Viz, will be doing the cosplay as the dead rabbit that Levia kills, and we'll be doing that on the Bud Rush Bellow, which is our live podcast we do Wednesday evenings, 9:30 Eastern. And then I also want to shout out to Greg, our wonderful producer, who is back from some paternity leave. So, Greg, how you doing? If you're editing this week's podcast, insert yourself. If you aren't, this is weird. So, hell, it's going to be fun anyway. But now let's get down to brass tacks here, Chris. First of all, how are you?
Good. I mean, things have been hectic. I mean, lots of Flesh and Blood being played right now, especially with the Green Tree and Pittsburgh crew. And like I said, the show open here, you did get to meet many of us in Indy, so you saw us at our worst, which is also our best. And it was funny because even before you came, we were joking, sitting there saying, Tom's not allowed to come, but Tommy Fresh is. We're like, Tom got to stay the hell out of here, but Tommy's allowed in. So, it was a good time. We were glad you stopped by the house and, were able to have a couple drinks with us and have some fun.
Yeah. For those that don't know, when I in Indy for the Calling Indianapolis, I stayed with Gary, Mr. Viz, and I got back from a dinner with some friends from, like Flake and all them. And Gary was hanging out with the Pittsburgh crew, and I walk into our hotel room, and as soon as I walk in, I get like a huge text that it's from Gary, but it's certainly Sin actually texted it, and it was like threatening me that I had to come. So I immediately hopped in an Uber and headed like probably like 20 minutes away to your Airbnb. But I don't regret it at all. It was a lot of fun. I got to build my deck for the next day while we were drinking and having a good time. But hey, it's awesome. So that night, I actually asked you if you wanted to come on. You said yes. So, I wanted to kind of start here and get to know the man behind the league, the Commoner League, which we will be talking about. But first, before we even get to Flesh and Blood stuff, when did trading card games come into your life?
Yeah, so I mean, I like many kids that were probably or people that are around my age, the Pokemon trading card game was kind of just coming to the States and was kind of getting big right when I was in grade school, and so I mean, I collected those. To this day, I don't think I ever learned how to play the game properly. It's one of those things. Me and my buddies used to always just get the cards and kind of put them in a binder and just be like, okay, I'm going to play Charizard now. I'm going to play Zapdos and just forget energy, just okay, I'm attacking with 120, I'm attacking with 100, and we're like, I'm never gonna beat them, they have these crazy decks. But yeah, it was nuts. We used to do a lot of trading there. I had a couple friends that played Magic, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. But it was back when you're a kid and the more is more ideology was around. So like, where now, like, in Flesh and Blood, you're like, okay, I want a nice 60 card CC deck that's streamlined and does what it does. No, these people were walking in with like plastic baggies of like 500 deep card decks and just being like, this is what we're doing. We're playing everything. This has, all the best cards in it. And I was like, well, I'm never going to keep up with that. So I skipped Magic until, honestly, only a couple years ago. But then I got into like, the digital card games, Hearthstone, all that kind of good stuff. Like I said, then I got into Magic and eventually Flesh and Blood. So I mean, I've kind of been playing various different card games, casually, a lot of board games, things like that, for many, many years. But really, really, diving in and trying to, go hardcore and perform well, especially at a local scene, has been a relatively new thing to me.
Okay. Yeah, and gosh, you saying more is more, it kind of really like brings me back, because I remember one of the first packs of Magic the Gathering I ever opened. I think it was like Kamigawa, one of the original Kamigawas, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the cards that I opened was a card. It was like, probably like an uncommon. It was Ashen Monstrosity. It was like a 6 mana 7/4 with like haste, but had to attack every turn or whatever. And I was like, whoa, I've never seen 7 attack on a card before. This must be the best card ever. And I believed that for many, many years, unfortunately. But I love that. So for those who don't know, Chris runs a commoner league, which is, run from a Discord, which we'll obviously talk more about that and link all the proper ways to kind of get involved there. But I was wondering, this is kind of interesting. So you run this league, this community, right? Basically, you just did it. Now, have you had experience running a league / community in other games?
Yeah, so I have not in card games, but I don't know if you ever played the game, and I'm going to call it a MOBA, but it's not. It's an online team battler. Heroes of the Storm, which is a Blizzard kind of MOBA. So there was an amateur league that was probably, I think, the biggest at its time. I think it's still going on, even though the game, I think, is kind of in its death roll, so to speak here. But the idea of it was, we get all these people together, got, people to learn how to stream, do all that kind of stuff, and form actual teams and give them the opportunity to stream, compete against each other. And it kind of blew up pretty quickly. I wasn't one of the 2 original admins, but I came on very, very quickly after, I think, like season 2, 3 of it, something quick like that. And I kind of helped run the league, help cast and stream games and all that kind of stuff there. So I did that for, a good while before, having kids and moving on and just saying, hey, I don't have time to, practice 4 nights a week for multiple hours anymore, in MOBAs. But, I mean, to this day, I'll pick up a Zagara, Brightwing, Abathur, all that kind of stuff in the game and still play it, anytime. I mean, it was a great game, but the league was absolutely fantastic. Like I said, if you play Heroes of the Storm, I think the Nexus Gaming series is still going on, and definitely worth checking out because it's a fantastic group and a fantastic game. So that was the only real big community I ever, kind of had a running role in prior to actually starting this one up myself and running it.
So do you have a kind of a passion just in general about communities and kind of, being part of like a bigger picture kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I definitely do. I mean, so my big thing, and it definitely like after I started to have kids is, I don't know how old you are, Mr. Fresh here, but I am, mid 30s here. I'm at a ripe old age of 35 right now, turning 36 here in about 2 weeks. But it's one of those things that like, honestly, I didn't get into a lot of my hobbies, like, that I love now, like Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, Flesh and Blood cards games, things like that, until I was older, just because I was always like, okay, I don't want to be seen as like a nerd in school or something like that. And then when I started to have kids, it was one of those things I said, look, I don't want them to ever feel like, something that they're interested in, they should be ashamed of. And so I said, like, I'm going to start getting into this. And I wanted to build communities where other people that maybe felt like, hey, I'm potentially seen as an outsider, or, I don't feel comfortable, going out to what I would consider my normal friend group and expressing this interest and say, hey, look, if this is something that interests you or something that you want to explore or want to be a part of, let's have a safe space for you to do that. Let's create a welcoming community that will kind of support you and kind of build each other up. And I wanted to kind of create that environment. So, I mean, I've that's always been something I've been passionate about, outside of even this league is allowing, people to have areas to be themselves and express what they have an interest in. And this just kind of came about, almost kind of accidentally. But I'm very proud of, who it is, or what it is, who's in it, and, how active the community is. And, everybody I've talked to that, plays, I don't think I've had a single bad experience with any player yet, which is fantastic because, how it is with anything online, you're always bound to hit a bad apple here or there. But I mean, the community is probably the Flesh and Blood community as a whole, actually, we'll say, is probably one of the nicest and friendliest communities that I've been a part of. And so it's just been an absolute pleasure just running it personally.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's first of all very awesome to hear. Kind of like coming to that realization, right? Especially with your children, right? That it's important, right, to kind of be able to follow what you want to do, and also it's like great to hear. This is kind of like why you're on the podcast, because I understand wanting to be in a part of something that feels safe and open and where you can just kind of be who you are, and it's very, very, very cool. And hey, listen, I think anyone that's been on this podcast, and myself included, believes the same thing. Flesh and Blood, just you run into some interesting stuff every once in a while, right? But it's
agreed.
It's little things here and there.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, and I got to give you credit. I mean, the Fresh and Buds community is absolutely awesome. I mean, even before I really started to listen or really started to understand who you are, or meet you, or anything like that, I was always like, oh, it's really cool. This guy's just calling his like followers his buds, like, oh, it's the buds, like, and I was like, this is really neat. So I always kind of like thought that was a really cool thing to do. So I got to give you kudos for that, because it was a genius idea.
Well, it's hey, listen, some people thought it was a different kind of bud, but I don't, who cares? I don't care whether you do what you want. But yeah, that's what it's all about, right? At least we play games to have fun and be with people you hopefully you like. So it's that's what it's all about. But speaking of this game that we both agree is incredible, and a majority of experiences are positive. When did Flesh and Blood enter the fray for you, Chris?
Yeah, so like I said, I was playing a lot of Magic and a lot of Commander. I was actually starting to get a little frustrated with that community as a whole, because, and let's compare it again to Flesh and Blood here, is, if me and you were sitting across the table and playing a game, and at the end of it, you beat me with Levi or something like that, and I go, oh my God, that deck is fantastic. 9 times out of 10, you're going to sit down and like throw your deck in front of me and just say, oh, look, here's how I built it, and here's what I'm doing, and this is what it's aiming for. And people aren't really exactly hiding secrets, unless you're like in an event or like something like that, and you're trying, actually playing it and trying to climb the ladder. But most people seem excited to talk about their decks. And so in Magic, if you've ever played Commander, there's the whole rule zero talk of like, oh, I have a power level 6 or power level 7, and then people start bickering of what that means. So it's just kind of nice, seeing that from the outside. And I was like, okay, well, let me see what this game is. I'm looking for a more one-on-one kind of feel. And I started to watch a lot of, like Red Zone Rogue, DM Armada, things like that on YouTube. And I said, okay, like I'm gonna buy a couple boxes just personally, see what it's like. And it was right around just before Everfest came out, like it was like right around the spoiler season there. And so I bought a couple boxes of Monarch. And my wife, who loves board games but does not like trading card games, I kind of forced her. I said, okay, look, I want to play this game, so I got a box of Monarch. I pulled out 6 packs and said, we're going to play some sealed and see how it goes. That way I can learn and have somebody to play against. And she beat me 3 out of 4 times with Bolton. And so, I mean, it was like, okay, I'm hooked, but now I want to get better on it. And my biggest issue again was, well, where do I play and how do I play against people? And so I started to like join various different Discords and do some, tabletop simulator. But whenever I was posting, I think just on Twitter, Matt, who is, sit on stream, basically reached out to me and said, hey, look, I see you're in Pittsburgh. Why don't you come down to Green Tree Sports Cards? We'll meet every Tuesday. It's a great group. And I was like, I don't know if I just want to go in because, they may have a pre-established group. It's going to be weird as an outsider. But I mean, literally, I took the risk. The second I stepped in the door, it was like, everybody's like I've known them for years. I mean, immediately, like people like you would leave and they'd be like, "Oh, see you later, Chris. Have a good night." And I'm like, "Oh, like I'm impressed. You know my name." Like I couldn't remember anybody's name there, or anything like that. And John, the owner, was just fantastic. And like, hey, whatever you need, let me know. I can help you get set up. We'll teach you the game. If you made a mistake, they were extremely welcoming. So, I mean, I got to give Matt credit for that because, I mean, if he wasn't so outgoing and good at trying to get people in the game and get people in the store, I would have never probably taken the leap. But it was, a great experience and it has me hooked. I mean, every Tuesday now it's I got to go to the Armory. It's funny because like my wife even laughs, like if I miss a week, she'll sit there and say like, I could tell you're just tense because like, you haven't had that chance to unwind. So she's like, please go have fun with your friends and I'll see you in a little bit. So it's a good time. And I'm very, very happy that I got into it when I did. And, I'm hopefully giving other people the, the same feel or maybe trying to get into the game themselves.
Well, it's pretty incredible. You said it was right before Everfest you started going. And to my memory, I think it was around January, February when Everfest came out. And then
around there, yeah.
Indie Calling this year was January, February. It's a year, right? And
yep.
I was I was at the Pittsburgh House. I thought you guys have known each other forever, which was pretty incredible. That's like the best thing about this game, right? The relationships we've grown. So now, you start playing, right? You're going to Armory every week. Where did the idea for the Commoner League come from?
Yeah. So, and this is why I said like, it was born as a little bit of a selfish idea because so when I started to play and I started to go to the store and you see the Blitz decks and you see everything, I'm like, okay, I have none of this legendary equipment. I'm not going to be able to keep up, but I want to keep playing. And I think at the time it was even before LSS announced it as like an officially unofficial kind of format. I believe it was DM Armada's Discord was doing like a commoner kind of esque format themselves. I can't remember exactly if the rules are exactly the same as how they are now. But I was like, okay, this seems cool in that I can try out various different heroes, get the cards relatively easily and cheaply. But again, I didn't know if anybody wanted to play it, but I wanted to certainly give it a shot. So I kind of just reached out, I think, blindly on Twitter or a various Discord or something like that and just said, hey, if anybody wants to play Commoner, if I made a league or something, would anybody be interested? Thinking, if I get like 4 people that maybe want to do it regularly, that's cool. And I think I had something like 15, 20 people immediately reach out. So they said like, yeah, I want to do it. And so I said, okay, cool. What I'll do is, I'll set something up. Financially, I can't provide major prizing or anything like that for anybody, but like I would go to the armories, get my promo card for the week, and then like we would play our games, our group of like 20, 30 people or so for the first season. And then, I'd just be like, okay, I pick a random winner and I send them my, my armory promo. That way it's like people that maybe, again, didn't have a local armory or didn't have something like that nearby to play. they still were able to get something. So it was, to me, it was a, hey, this is my thank you for participating and allowing me to play the game, but also a way for people to be invested as well. So, and it's funny, every season I normally put out a survey saying, like, hey, would you play without prizing? And everybody's like, yeah, like I just keep playing because it's fun to do. But, it's always kind of my goal to try to provide something for people to kind of compete towards and walk away with. And if I can get multiple winners every season, that's certainly something I aim to do.
That's pretty awesome. And, I've only done it once. It's just because, like, life gets in the way, but I was really happy to do it, and I had a lot of fun. I mean, Commoner is, like, I feel like a very underexplored format right now. And, I'm sure you agree, because I think we're barely cracking the surface on what you can do in that format.
I definitely agree. I mean, I think it's one of the better formats, and it's funny that you said, like, when you're like, hey, you played a season, because you've kind of become, whether or not you know it, a Flesh and Common Blood legend, in that whenever we were playing, and in prior seasons, my leagues always run as a best of 3 format. And so you had an opponent one week that was messaging me, and it's actually Jeff O. You know him. And he was like, okay, I'm playing Tommy Fresh this week. I know he likes brutes. I'm just going to present 3 brutes, but build the exact same deck. Like, so Levia, KO, and Rhinar, but just build the same generic brute deck. That way I could just hit him 2 times with the same deck just for laughs. I don't think he ultimately did it. But it was one of those things that we were laughing about, and to this day, it's one of my favorite stories of somebody going, "Okay, I'm going to target somebody and just try to play their favorite hero the best way that I can."
Yeah, I mean, it is a little unfortunate, kind of like going into that, because for those that don't know, you present 3 decks, and someone eliminates one, right? Your opponent eliminates one that you can do. And I only ever, when I've played it, I was only ever had one deck built, and it was Levia. And I was just like, I don't think anybody's going to eliminate it. But there was also some metagaming going on. So people could be like, I know he really plays that a lot. So I did have to have some kind of backup, but it was a ton of fun. And, leave it to Jeff, to try to super metagame me with a brute lineup, which is hilarious. So, but I got to ask, you mentioned that you got into Commoner because, the expense of legendaries and stuff like that is certainly a real thing. Is Commoner your favorite way to play Flesh and Blood?
I would probably say Commoner's my second favorite way to play. My favorite way to play is Draft, and primarily because I'm a table talker. If you ever play poker with me, I am not the one that's sitting there quiet. I'm the one just chatting up a storm about how terrible my hand is and all that kind of stuff. So if you ever sit down and draft with me, in kind of a casual armory setting or something like that, I'm the one sitting there. If I get a legendary, like, I'm standing up, I'm cheering. I have yet to pull a legendary. I did pull a cold foil plague hive, but you can't play with the cold foils and draft. So that kind of bit me. But yeah, I like sitting there talking about how terrible it is. I think we did one draft, and I wasn't paying that much attention to what I was drafting. And it was a Welcome to Wrath, and it was a Guardian, and I literally think I had 3. What is it? The Emerging Powers, and then 3. It was not 3, like 17 copies combined of these 2 cards, and neither of them were attacks. And so, and like at the end of it, like, I'm sitting there showing people my deck, like, how many of this is in here? I'm like, I don't know. This is terrible. This one really, this got away from me somehow. I was just picking every blue that came across, and so. Like to me, I just think the mayhem of that is fun. But yeah, Commoner is definitely second, only because I feel like in terms of all of the formats, Commoner, I think, is the most balanced out against at any given time. Like you said, you can walk in with a Levia and have a pretty good chance of winning. Even against like a Kasai or an Ira or something like that. That's kind of top of the meta right now, based on what we've been seeing. Because there's just less of the big explosive cards, the Majestics, the rares, things like that, legendaries. that people have access to. So everybody's kind of playing with this similar power level deck. So we've had people like Capolo, he does something similar to me where he just tries to run the gambit with like unseen heroes. So we've seen like Cavadines win. I think the only one we haven't had a win yet on is Datadol. And so everybody else though has been hit, which is neat. So I love that about Commoner because it really does kind of balance the playing field out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty awesome, right? Like I felt when I did play it, right? I felt like I could bring Levia or I could build something else wacky, and then also I was presented with the my opponent would present 3 decks of heroes that like I know all about in CC, but then I'm like racking my brain like, well, how is this going to work without Majestics and Rares? What is going on? And then they spank me with it, which is just hilarious. But so with that said, and also I do want to say, you mentioned, drafting is your favorite. And I have to agree. We've only ever done one draft together. And that was the alpha draft at the Realm Games, which was fun. I don't remember much of it except for the cold foil, but
I seem to remember somebody pulling a cold foil that was sitting right next to me. But
yeah, sorry. I was also inebriated, but it was fun regardless. So with all that said, I think it's safe to say you're pretty happy with the way Commoner has been going.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy with the Commoner format. I'm also happy with, they just made the change, what was it, last week with the Commoner format, where now you can have, I believe it's unlimited, well, not in your 11 slot kind of sideboard of equipment and weapons. It could be as many rare equipment and weapons as you would like in that 11. So, I like that. I like how it changes up the format there. I think we're going to see some mix-ups coming up, this season of my league. So I'm really excited where it's going to go. But as a whole, I'm thinking the Commoner format's pretty good. I don't want them to tweak too much yet. I want to kind of see where everything's going. And what I like about it, too, is since it's not really a big hitting kind of pro level kind of format, that people aren't afraid, like you said, to kind of get wacky, try new things and really give it a go. To me, it's kind of like UPF in that regard, where people are just like, hey, I want to play with cards I don't normally play with, or I want to try something really weird. One of my favorite Commoner decks is actually Pummel Chain. Or no, Pummel Ira. I do Pummel Chain as well, but Pummel Ira specifically, because I just come in with the Edge of Autumn, and then I just play a weird 2-attack and pummel. Like the first time the opponent sees it, like what the heck is going on? Like what the hell did you bring here? This makes no sense. This is an Ira. But it's like those kind of moments that you could just create something weird or play with something weird that makes people laugh and have fun with. It's what I love about Commoner.
Yeah, it is really cool. And then Pummel Ira sounds absolutely insane. I'd love to see what that's like. Now, you mentioned that you wouldn't really want any tweaks. That being said, is there anything, you've just like thought about in the format? You're like, I wish we could just change it to this.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that they would give us, and I have the same, complaint about Blitz as well, is the only thing I wish that they would add is instead of making it 11 equipment sideboard, like equipment weapon, I think it should just be a flat 11 card sideboard into Blitz and Commoner as well. Because there are times where you'll just build a deck and go into a Kano or something, and you're like, well, these sync blows are going to do nothing for me. So having that flexibility, I think, would be fun. Keep it still at 51 card total deck. But that's the only thing I'd like to see changed. I think everything else that they're doing is pretty good, but I love that about CC, being able to kind of see what your opponent's playing and make those decisions that best fit your deck. But I'd like that to be carried into Commoner as well. If I was sitting across the table from James White, that's definitely the ask I would have.
Well, hopefully we can get that going. Now, for the listeners who don't play Commoner, what would you say is the best way to get into Commoner, and why is it joining your Discord community and playing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, apart from joining my Discord community, the biggest thing I would sit there and say is if you have an armory available to you or a local game store that runs armories, if they do any kind of surprising or anything like that. Like, I know that we're very spoiled with Green Tree Sports Cards and what John does. It's, a pack per win, 2 packs at the door, things like that. But even if not, go to your local game store, play in the armory, do whatever you need to do. Many times, if your store is anything like ours, you have people that just have boxes and boxes and boxes of bulk that they just want to unload. I can't, like, literally I have a box right down here next to me that is, 4 rows wide of just bulk. Yeah, those boxes exactly. I mean, it's one of those things that, so anytime there's a new player that comes to our store, they walk out with like a BCW box, like 1,000 count wide. That's just commons and rares. Like, we'll open packs and be like, here's everything. Like, here's what you need. Get started in the game. So I mean, it's not too hard to obtain that. I always have the offer out of somebody saying, hey, look, if you're new to the game and you want to try a hero, reach out to me. I'll build you a commoner deck and just send it to you. Like, I want people to be able to play it, especially new players. But that's kind of my number one, again, apart from joining my Discord and playing in my seasons and all that good stuff. That's my number one kind of piece of advice, is just telling people, get out there, meet people, tell them that you want to build commoner decks. A lot of times stores, even like as they crack cases, they just put bulk aside, and they may even make commoner decks and say, hey, I'll sell it to you for like $4, $4 or $5. And that's a great way to get started.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, the reality of life right now is the economy is not the greatest right now. And so, you know what? Commoner's a great way to still be able to play this awesome game and, not break the bank. Not everybody has a lot of that extra, cash that they can buy boxes and legendaries and stuff like that. So, I implore anyone who even has thought about it to kind of, take that advice and, please join the Smithel's Discord. But, look at what your LGS is doing as well. Now, in Commoner, which heroes reign supreme? And are there any others that you think that like are probably on the cusp?
Yeah. So there are, in my opinion, 3, maybe 4 big ones to kind of be concerned about if you're looking into Commoner. Bravo, for example, absolutely fantastic in Commoner, especially with the shield that he got in Dynasty. And now that, he's not limited to 2 rare equipments, it's not like he has to choose shield and something else. You just play shield, you swing, you pummel it. Play, swing, pummel. Dominate, swing, pummel. He is very, very good in Commoner. Chain is another one that I feel like gets overlooked a lot. Chain, he still has access to things like Seeds of Agony. He's good. And then obviously Ira, absolutely a monster in Commoner, just because of, her ability in which he has access to do. So, I mean, those are probably my top 3. In terms of any that I think can still be cracked, gosh, and this is going to sound a little bit weighted here, but I'd like to see people, especially with the new roles, try to get Dory going. Dory does okay. She's not particularly great, particularly bad. But she loses a lot of things that she wants. But now that she's able to maybe do the Quicksilver Dagger, there may be ways outside of the Dawnblade route that may make more sense to her. So I would love to see somebody come up with like a monster Dory deck and just run rampant with it. I think that would be kind of really, really cool to see. And again, as somebody that loves Dory, I know I'm a little biased in that decision.
I mean, I think anybody should want a hero that isn't shining in a format to shine at some point. So totally a fair response there. Now, Chris, we're going to do the fresh faves right now. This is where I'm going to ask you a couple of your favorite cards in the game.
Sure.
And hopefully you answer them. Are you ready?
I'm born ready for you.
All right. Which hero is your favorite?
So it is hands down Dorinthia. I mean, I think whenever you think about Flesh and Blood and what the game should feel like, in my opinion at least, Dorinthia is top tier in getting that feel. So what drew me to the game was the idea of like you're sitting down with somebody and it feels like a battle. You should be getting weaker. You should be getting going, and just the idea of like I'm swinging with a sword and then I'm trying to like play these mind games with you. Like, do I have something? Do I not? Do you block the first attack? Do you block the second attack? I love the idea that she builds in the how well do you know the game as opposed to how well do I know just my deck. If you've never played into a Dory, she will easily just wreck you. However, if you respect her and know when you should block, when you shouldn't block, all that kind of stuff, Dory will struggle. So I think it's just the perfectly designed hero. And again, my opinion, if you're really trying to explain to somebody, what flesh and blood is and how it feels and how you gradually start feeling weaker as the game goes on and when blocks are important, when you should, use your life. So I'm 100% Dory fan.
That's a great answer. Now, what is your favorite weapon?
So this one is, I'll throw Dawnblade aside because Dawnblade is just Dawnblade. I will say my favorite weapon is honestly Voltaire. I love the idea of it. So Rangers are the other class that I'm kind of drawn to. I do not play a particularly great Ranger, but I just, again, the feel of loading an arrow, shooting an arrow, loading an arrow, shooting an arrow is real cool to me. And Voltaire, it's kind of holding a special part to me because, like I said, when I just got started, Lexi was the hero I wanted to learn first. There was somebody in the community, his name's Jay Swain. He's in the Discord. He's like, hey, me and my wife, we both play Lexi. We have tons of bulk. I'm going to send it to you. Is that okay? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'd love it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I want to build Lexi. I get this box in the mail. I crack it open. I'm digging through the bulk, and literally, like laying flat at the bottom of the box, like under the cards, there's a Voltaire and an Arcanite skull cap. And so I immediately reached back to him. I'm like, look, dude, and this is back when Arcanite was like no Crown of Providence exists, all that kind of stuff. I said, look, hey, look, buddy, you left 2 cards in here. What's your mailing address? Let me send them back to you. These are expensive cards. And he's like, no. He's like, I have duplicates. I know you're getting started. Hopefully this, gives you a good head start here. And so that card is one that I will never trade away, never do anything like that. The skull cap. Now, what I did do with that is, whenever I pulled my own, I kind of passed that along and gave it to somebody else who was starting the game. Just to kind of repay the favor. But yeah, the Voltaire, the bow, I love how it plays. I love the style of it. I love the design, the art. And like I said, it's just a sentimental card to me, as it was one that, a hero I wanted to play when I was getting started, and being able to have access to it was just fantastic.
That's awesome. That's an incredible story. I love that. Now, what's your favorite equipment? Is it Arcanite skull cap?
so no, it is another sentimental one, but it is one that is warrior related. I love Valiant Dynamo. I think those legs are significantly undervalued in certain metas. It is the card that single-handedly won me my skirmish last year. Whenever I played, I think it was right whenever. Why is it blanking? Not Outsiders, Five set, Uprising. Mm-hmm. It was like we were, playing Uprising. There was a lot, like not a lot of fives, but there was 2 or 3 fives or something like that in the meta at the skirmish event. And just when people let Dory just swing twice for free, you're just getting one block consistently over and over and over and over in the game. And so it was one of those things. I was building out the deck. I had 2 Spring Tunics at the time. Spring Tunic was valued similar to Dynamos were. And I was sitting there talking to, again, John, Green Tree Sports Cards. And I was like, hey, look, I'm trying to get a Dynamo. Do you have one? I was like, I have 2 Tunics. He goes, yeah, come in. We'll just do a trade. So I gave him a, rainbow foil Tunic. He gave me a cold foiled Dynamo. And I was like, at the time, the Dynamos were significantly higher in cost, the cold foil ones. And again, just getting me started, that's another card. I said, look, I can't trade this away. It was kind of a gift at the time. But I love them. I run them in all of my Dory decks. I think it's a fantastic card. And the art, again, is really, really fantastic on them.
Yeah, Dynamo. I mean, I have to say I'm a huge Dynamo fan as well, though probably more in like Bolton decks for me. But I could see it being excellent in Dory. I mean, it's essentially carrying Husk in a lot of matchups. Right, it'll block 6 or 7 damage throughout a game, which is pretty incredible. Which
you go into anything that just is like, hey, I'm going aggro and I'm not blocking. You just run those left and right, and it's amazing the value you get over the course of a CC match or even a blitz match. Whenever you sit there and look at it, like, okay, 2 health is 10% of your life in there. If you're blocking 1 health, you're saving 1% or 5% of your life every time.
Yep.
So I mean, just consistently getting those off is huge in blitz.
Oh yeah, and it helps with the breakpoint. I could gush over that card forever. Now, what's your favorite, card you put in your deck? Your attack actions, your non-attack actions, your instants.
So I mean, if there's a card type, I do like attack reactions. I love the idea, again, as somebody that grew up playing, various different things of like poker and just other regular card games. With friends, I love the idea of a good bluff of what's in my hand. Do I have it? And so there's nothing better in the world than being able to route somebody that sits there and goes, I know you have route, but then they don't block to prep the route. Or if they sit there and see you floating the resources and see you with the card in hand, they just go, okay, I'm going to crazy overblock, and you don't have anything. So I love that idea of the attack reaction of just being, I'm presenting a number, but I'm not really presenting that number, and you have to take that guess as to do I or don't I? So I love attack reactions. That's why I'm, again, really, really drawn to the warrior class.
Yeah, well, route is, I mean, that card probably wins so many games, right? For a card that usually only run one, which is.
Route is a fun card because, like, I mean, again, prepping for that skirmish season last year that whenever I won it was at one of our local ones here. Jeff O and I were practicing like literally every night, multiple times, in a row. My, Dory against his dash, really, really trying to get reps in. So he's seen it a million times, and we sit down at the table. I'm playing against him, and I win on the route. And I've never, like, I literally thought he was going to jump across the table and strangle me. Like, beat red, get so mad to the point where we had another skirmish the next day. And I'm playing against him, and I'm like, Jeff, I'm really sorry. I was like, I'm gonna route. Please don't get pissed. He's like, no, it's okay. But he goes, I was just mad because I knew it was there. I've seen your deck. I have it memorized, and I still fell for it. But yeah, it's a fun card. Just say to somebody, get routed, idiot. Always feels good.
Oh yeah, route there, Jerry, and loving every minute of it. Now, let's talk about community a little bit, and then we'll answer some listener questions. We talked at length about Commoner, but I want to kind of get a feel for how your experience has been running the community, right? So, First of all, how has the experience been as a community runner?
Yeah, so the Flesh and Common Blood community, as I said earlier in the show, is absolutely amazing. I always say the statement of, look, as long as there's people that want to play, if we can get 8 to 16 people in a season, I'll run the league. And it has been amazing to me that we generally get 20 to 30 consistently every time, because it is a testament to the people that play that love to play against each other, love the community that we've built, love being able to play Commoner, and especially not just normal Commoner, but like kind of the best of 3 format, because it really lets them say, hey, I like playing, but then I also like talking to the people that I'm playing with between the matches and really talking about the decks and deck teching and things like that. So running the league has been an absolute pleasure. I'm, as long as people want to do it, I'm hoping I can continue to run it as long as that goes. We've had multiple people generously step up for prizing, whether it be companies like Quiver Time, Ultra Pro. We've had individuals, Jay Swain, Capullo always sends a set of heralds, John from Green Tree. In fact, this month, he basically said, hey, whatever you get, I'm going to just match it. So he gave me a box of Outsiders, that we're going to be divvying up and giving out to the community. So, the community as a whole has stepped up amazingly to kind of back this and make sure that everybody has a good time. So, I mean, I always tell people in the community, it's not my community, it's their community. I just facilitate it. So whatever people say that they want to do, we're going to make happen. And the second people say, hey, we don't want to do best of three anymore, we'll scrap best of three. But people seem to like that because they say, hey, look, there's some people say this is the only game that I get to play during the week, this one match. So logging on, getting destroyed by an IRA in 3 minutes and then having somebody log off feels bad. Yeah. So being able to at least get half an hour to an hour maybe of playtime max, people seem to, really, really like. So I love the community. I love everything that, they've done for it. I can't speak highly enough about these folks.
Yeah, it's awesome too, right? And I like what you said there about it's their community, right? Because that's what any community is, right? It is not just one person. It's always everybody, because that's what it takes. It takes a village or all a rising tide rises all ships, all that fun stuff. Now, have you ever hit any snags, kind of in your journey here with the Discord?
Yeah, I mean, certainly whenever, we were getting set up and things like that, you run into the snags of, first just getting the Discord, getting everybody in it, getting the roles working. Every snag that we've hit has certainly been stuff that I've just messed up on, take full ownership of. Luckily though, we've always had somebody in there that can help or at least test some things for me, whether it be a report went incorrectly, somebody sit there and says, hey, I submitted something but it's not, the result isn't showing that way, walking me back through it, making sure that I got the data right, so we can run it. But it's one of those things that it's been relatively smooth. Nothing hasn't been able to been backed out or solved, or not been solved quickly. But like any good community or anything like that, it's not going to be flawless. It's not going to be perfect. The key is just kind of leaning on the support system, leaning on the people that are there to kind of see it do well, and not being afraid to kind of say, hey, I made a mistake here. Here's what it should be, and making sure that you can back that up.
Yeah. Folks tend to want to keep moving, and that's what they'll do. And they'll say, oh, well, that goes right in the past, right? We're looking to the future. Now, what would you tell someone who kind of came to you and said, hey, I want to start a community, just like you, or a league, something like you? Is there anything like you would just tell them, just as a word of advice, hey, do this, make sure you do this?
Yeah, so my biggest piece of advice is, often I sit there and see people that sit there and say, hey, I have this idea, or I want to do this, but there's not enough people interested, or I don't think there's not enough people interested. Just do it. I mean, nobody, and I'm sure, like, whenever you launch the Fresh and Buds community, you didn't immediately have 100, 200, whatever kind of members. Probably started small and grew over time. It's one of those things that just, similar to if you're a content creator, like whenever I stream, the best piece of advice I got was, don't sit there and be discouraged if there's not 100 people. If there's one person, you make that one person feel like the most important person in the room. That's my advice. If you want to start a community, is don't be afraid to start small. If you do something and you only have 5 regular people participating, that's fine. Next time you do it, make it to 6, make it to 10. As long as you're sitting there and saying, okay, I have 5, I want to be at 10. How do I get there? And make that plan and stick to it. That's good. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have things like that. But ultimately, the big thing is just don't be discouraged by low numbers in a community that you're starting. Just do what you love, and eventually other people will kind of, come to that as well. And you'll see that, it may not be as small of a pool as you initially anticipated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that I've said even about content creation is, if nobody listened, nobody watched, would you still enjoy doing it? Mm-hmm. And I think the answer should be yes, right? Like you're doing, like, because nobody starts off with a viewer base or whatever, an audience. So you have to love it, and that's a great way to kind of approach any kind of thing like that, community or otherwise. Mm-hmm. Now, what's the best way for folks to support what you do?
So for me personally, I always sit there and say the best thing folks can do is just get the word out. I mean, if you know somebody that wants to play Commoner and you know maybe is afraid to, or if you have a local community that doesn't like Commoner, doesn't do it in armories, you know, don't be afraid to share that information. You know, I always sit there and say, if anybody wants to support the league, you know, financially or donate prizing to the league, I'm not going to say no to it. Certainly, I'd welcome it. You know, appreciate it. I always try to support whoever supports me personally. You know, like so when Quiver Time supported, I went out and bought some of their products. Ultra Pro, same thing. But it's one of those things that I sit there and say, you know, my goal is not necessarily to make money. In fact, every penny I make from the Commoner League goes back into the Commoner League and then some in terms of prizing. But I always sit there and say, like, the best thing you can do is just get out there and spread the word. Or, you know, if you're just a good person that likes coming in and, you know, playing against others, come join. You know, if you're just a, you know, positive person, we just want you in the community. You know, that's the best way you can personally support, is just kind of building that community, the, you know, as you would say, big bud energy kind of vibes around folks that, you know, we could just get people in there. Everybody feels welcomed. Everybody feels loved, and we can all enjoy this hobby together.
Amen. Amen. I like to hear the big bud energy thrown around a little bit. Now, is there anything in the league coming down the pipes in the future?
Yeah, so we are kicking off our 5th season of it here. Signups end on the 5th of April with the start date, I believe, being the 9th or whatever that Sunday is. Yeah, the 9th. And it is going to run. We are obviously giving away this season an invite to the Realms 20K event in December. So, you know, if your local LGS has an RTI event, like Green Tree just had one this past Sunday I went to, did not win. But this is an opportunity for you to get in. I always laugh saying my biggest goal is whoever wins this season of the league, I want them to win at the 20K. That way, like, I can get them a shirt that says, like, I won thousands of dollars thanks to Commoner or something like that. Like that's something that I think would just be awesome to see. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I'm hoping the league continues to grow. I'm hoping that we can continue to provide fun prizing, things like that. But the future of the league, like I said before, it's really up to the players of the league. The day they say, you know, hey, Chris, we're done with this, stop, we'll shut it down. But if people sit there and say, hey, we want to do Commoner and then maybe transition to Blitz or whatever, we'll do that too. But right now the game plan is we are shifting up our play format. It's still best of 3, but there's no bring 3, ban 1. It's bring 2, win with both. Kind of deal.
Okay.
And so this makes it so, like you said before, there were people that were kind of metagaming and saying, okay, I'm going to say I'm bringing Oldhim so that they ban the Oldhim, and then I can play the 2 decks or one of the 2 decks I want. This is just basically saying, hey, make the 2 decks you want to play, but win with both of them to win the week. You know, if that goes well, we'll probably continue that. If not, we'll adjust. But, you know, everybody seems happy about that change right now. So we'll see how that kind of pans out.
Awesome. And unfortunately, this episode will be out on the 6th. But for anybody who's interested, just join the Discord anyway. The seasons are pretty quick, and you'll be.
I will say, even if it's out the 6th, we always have room for subs. You know, inevitably every season somebody drops or something like that, and we may need to fill a spot in the division. So by all means, you know, if you get to the slate and say, hey, I want to join or I want to sub, anybody that subs is eligible for prizing, all that kind of good stuff. So don't be afraid to sit there and say, hey, I missed signups, but, you know, I'd like to join or like to participate. Awesome.
Yeah. And that'd be a great way to kind of get the foot into the door, right? You know, you don't have to commit fully, but you know, you get a little taste, right? Which is nice.
Exactly.
Now we have some listener questions here, Chris. If you're game, I'm game, my friend.
Always.
So these come from the Buds Discord, which anyone's free to join. It's in the link tree below, and it's a great community. And you get to ask cool questions, like the first one from Iron Mag, who asked, how would a Starvo version of Dash look like? Do you have an idea on this? I've been thinking about this one for a hot minute.
I've been looking at this and I don't. So, I mean, Dash and Starvo are so wildly different in terms of heroes and playstyles and things like that, that like I keep staring at this question going, well, what exactly they mean? If they just mean like, hey, what's a completely broken version of Dash it looks like in Commoner? I I think it's close to being there. I mean, Dash is again a very, very strong hero. If there were living legend points, we probably would have seen Dash get close to living legend out in commoner a while ago. Sadly, she's kind of fallen a little bit off of the chain. But I mean, if we were to sit there and say now, what could we do to make there be a talent kind of like fuse kind of system like you had with the elemental heroes? I would be curious as how you would do that with a mech. I think that would be a really cool idea where it's like you're kind of fusing items or kind of constructing the mechanoid, so to speak, even though we have one of those with a mech class where you're kind of putting all these parts together to either build a new weapon or build an item that they could utilize in game. But that's the best I think I could take from there. I'd be really curious to see what Iron Mag means by that, and I'd happily explain further, but that's the only way I could think of comparing Starvo and Dash.
Yeah, I mean, so I read this and like, well, how would they reprint Dash in a way that kind of really just juices her up? So,
oh my gosh,
my thoughts are, so in a conversation I had with Dead Summer Art, obviously great creator, makes a lot of great lore stuff. The question of what the talent system would look like in metrics, right? And I believe that he mentioned, oh, maybe we'll get like essence of biomancy, essence of this, essence of that. So I imagine Dash would get like all three, right? And just like Starvo. And then I feel like the ability would be like, if you control a biomancy item, a whatever cyber item, and then the third one item, then you get some kind of crazy effect, right? Like you get to maybe go summon the mechanoid from your deck or something like that, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think, and I like the way that you're sitting there thinking about where you kind of get the essence, or you get like all those kind of things are the reprints. I would like them to do something more with Dash, like the construct mechanoid that came out in Dynasty. I think that's a real cool concept that I would love to see them reprint. If you're talking a reprint of Dash, reprint Dash and that kind of idea, similar to like how you have Dromai that creates dragons from ash. I would love to see something where like Dash can create something from scrap. Like you have all these kind of cards that just build scrap or build bolts or like leave parts on the floor when destroyed that she could then combine into something new. I would love to see kind of like that, like recycled kind of Dash or like a scrap inventor or something like that. I think that would be a cool new Dash.
That'd be cool. Like Dash kind of lost her mind and it's just like just blowing up her item. Like you would blow up your items to make scrap and then just make something even crazier, which
I would love something like that. Like just all the stuff on the battlefield that she has access to. I would love something like that.
That sounds awesome. Now, Tom from the Big Boss Book Club podcast, which I'm going to, I believe, be on this week, asked, does Chris think any hero can actually beat Oldhim in Commoner?
So, Tom, I have a love-hate relationship with Tom. I think he's one of the nicest guys. He was like one of the first ones in my Discord helping me try things out. But he also knows that I hate Oldhim with a passion. As a Dory player, just anytime I see Oldhim, I just get mad. So, I mean, I do think Oldhim can be beat. We've seen Bravo be able to kind of overcome Oldhim quite some time. He's tough. I think the way you beat Oldhim and Commoner is just you kind of let things keep going to time and basically say, hey, look, if you can't kill me with this and you're just going to play a full defensive thing, we're just going to draw out. That kind of prevents the fatigue Oldhims from kind of going rampant in Commoner where they just sit there and say, hey, sink below, sink below, sink below, fade for scene, fade for scene. And then at the very, very end, just start swinging hammer. It's kind of the similar strategy you'd see against an Oldhim in CC. Is in there saying, if you want to play fatigue, we'll go to time. I'm not going to just sit there and concede when I run low on cards. If there's 2 minutes left, I'm going to make you kill me in that 2 minutes. And that's my big piece of advice for anybody playing against Oldhim. Don't just concede. Look at the clock. Like if it's close, make the Oldhim suffer as well. Like if you're going to lose, bring them down with you. Not saying to slow play. Like certainly don't say slow play, but don't just sit there and say, okay, I scoop because you have 40 life and there's 30 seconds left. Be smart about it. It's a risk they pick whenever they play fatigue. So that's my advice for Oldhim and Commoners. If they're going to play it and be hyper defensive, make them win with it in time.
Yeah, no, that's a great piece of advice. Now, our producer Greg, aka Darth Prentice, asks, "What's the spiciest common from Outsiders?"
So Outsiders, and it's interesting because I think Outsiders is going to be a very good shakeup. There's a couple cards that I really like in Outsiders. I think the Infecting Shot, and most of them are going to be Rangers. I think Infecting Shot is an absolutely bonkers arrow. Being able to sit there and get Blood Rot, especially because so many commoner decks play hyper aggro. A lot of times you get really red heavy decks. And like I said before, if you hit them with two damage, that's 10% of life. So I like Infecting Shot a lot. I think that's fantastic. I do also believe that Virulent Touch is good as well in Commoner. Anytime that you can make somebody say, hey, I don't want to block this and potentially take 4, will be big. And then finally, in the one that I think, everybody's also kind of excited about is Scout the Periphery. I think Azalea always did relatively well in Commoner. She, was never completely broken or anything like that. But being able to just give her more ways to opt at common rarity is certainly big. So, if you're sitting there playing red and yellow Scout the Peripheries and just able to sit there and see the top card of your deck so you don't whiff as Azalea and Commoner, I think that's a big benefit and a big help.
Yeah, and I can imagine that, to my knowledge, it's a common Spire sniping is going to be a big addition for Azalea and Commoner, which is fun.
Yeah, I think Azalea's sitting real pretty. She's gonna have a lot of access to a lot of new arrows, a lot of cool things that maybe she didn't have before. But yeah, Spire sniping, even things like just Falcon Wing, to sit there and say, hey, look, I'm gonna get 3, go again for 0. And kind of keep going is good. So I'm excited. I also like Toxic Tips. I think it gives her basically the ability to sit there and say, I can control the game for whatever I need. So even though we don't get that sideboard, if you put that equipment in, you get 1 block out of it, which is nice if absolutely needed. Or if you're going to get a good hit, being able to control the game through tokens. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how things kind of pan out here over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it'll be very exciting. I think Azalea is probably going to be giving people a run for their money. Now, Pat Shaw from Off the Rails TCG asks, he states that they just updated the commoner rules to allow more rare equipment, which we had talked about. What piece of equipment do you think will have the biggest impact as a part of this change?
So, and it's hard to sit there and say the individual piece of equipment that's going to have the biggest impact. So I'm going to speak to it as a class as a whole. I think Brutes won by the change of rares now being allowed more than 2 pieces of equipment. So the legs that came in with Dynasty beaten trackers, those are poor min scabs. So it's one of those things that if you give now Brutes the ability to run beaten trackers and both Mandible Claws, I think that's a huge change for Brutes and Commoner. You get the block from beaten trackers. It's battle worn. It's not blade break. You basically can now choose when you want to swing twice with them instead of having to sit there and do the rolls with the scabs. I think that's huge. I also think the change of the Spell Fray equipment, being able to sit there and do a lot of those is big. Commoner being such an aggro kind of focused format currently. I know one of the big fall-offs that people have is having to obviously pay for Arcane. But if you sit there and say, look, I know I can race them down as long as I don't have to pay, being able to just do a full equipment loadout of Spell Void is awesome. You just get 4 free, Arcane for free. Barrier for free. That's good. I don't know if that's going to ultimately pay off, but I have a feeling there's going to definitely be some heroes that would prefer to do that than have to pitch things away, especially if you're real red heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we have a question from Capolo, who we mentioned already. It's a staunch supporter of the Commoner League. Asks, of the not legal young heroes in Commoner, which one would you like to be legal, and which one do you think it will be too overpowered? Now, I believe this is Emperor, Genus, Shiana, Valda, Yoji, Dorinthia, Quicksilver.
Yeah, so and I like that this came from Capolo. You know, if I had to pick somebody that could be legal, I think I would prefer it to be either Emperor or Genus. Emperor, just because I like the concept of him. I don't think he would do particularly well because of such the low life total and losing a lot of access to things that Emperor wants. And then Genus, just because I like the merchant class as an idea. I think it's just stupid and fun and wacky. And so seeing what people could come up with would maybe be fun. I don't understand why, you know, quite honestly, these, you know, majestic heroes are banned, to be, you know, honest. Maybe Yoji would be kind of problematic. But yeah, so when we sit there and say, hey, which ones are too overpowered? I think Yoji may fall in that category. Pat, in our local scene, he runs a Yoji Blitz deck, which is absolutely brutal to play against. It is hyper defensive. So I mean, I'd have to take a look at what common cards you could kind of use that, but it's just I feel like with the health buff, I believe he starts at what, 22 or something like that. You know, being able to start at 22, just go hyper defensive, burn out the commons. You're going to run into a similar thing with Oldhim, but just Oldhim with more life. So yeah, I'd prefer if he stays off the table, but the rest I think are perfectly fine. I don't think there's anything like, you know, what's Shiana going to do, you know? And commoner. But yeah, that would be my guess. I'd say Emperor, Genus, and Yoji keep out.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Valda probably falls into the Yoji, except one less life. 21. She starts at 21. Yeah, it has a more relevant ability, maybe, and then you can get the.
I mean, and I guess that's just my hate with Guardians in general. So I'm sure that's just coming through. I've been beaten down too many times by Bravo and Oldhim that I just want to keep all future Guardians away.
No, I understand. Trust me. We do have a question from Dead Summer. Kale,
sure.
Who asks, as someone new to building competitive but fun commoner decks, what sort of advice would you give me coming from Classic Constructed? And what sort of playstyles and strategies are more important in commoner as opposed to other formats? And you already mentioned a lot of aggro.
Yeah, so, you know, I definitely would prep more for the aggro. I mean, you got to build your decks a little bit more defensively, understanding that when people aren't lacking the or don't have available to them the big hitting kind of cards or the things that really define a hero, a lot of people are just going to be trying to sneak in damage every chance that they get and as fast as possible. Because again, when you run out of steam in a commoner deck, you normally run out pretty quick. So it's one of those things that if you're going aggro, you just got to kind of, you know, prep for it. The biggest advice I'd say coming from CC is you almost have to look at every hero in a new light. So when we sit there and say, like, you know, Bolton, for example, you got to understand Bolton loses his big combo. So he's going to play very, very differently. You're going to still probably get a little bit more of a defensive Bolton, but you're going to see a lot more late cards that are just going to be used as attacks as opposed to just kind of soul charging cards. Dory, for example, she's going to lose a lot of her abilities to do things such as route. So having the knowledge set of what heroes look dangerous when you take away their big swingers, that's the thing that, you know, is the number one that you'd have to think about with CC. Because again, no sideboard currently for people to kind of swap out to you, that you have to look at what hero is going to give you the most flexibility with a relevant hero ability in the cards to them, which is why we see heroes such as Ira that are just, you know, very, very strong, because Ira doesn't care about what kind of cards are being played. She can still do the poke one, you know, Kodachi, poke one Kodachi, you know, Rab, and then do another attack or something like that and come in for like another +1 or whatever the case may be. Her broad generic ability is just much more powerful and commoner than it is in Blitz, and she's still, you know, a monster in Blitz as well. Yeah. So it's one of those things that just understanding what every hero is in this new, you know, kind of toned down light, I think is important.
Absolutely. Now, finally, we have a question from Sigma, who asks, what do you think about Clash as a step up from Commoner? Are you familiar with Clash?
Yeah, so I am familiar with Clash. Personally, I'm not a Clash fan. I mean, if we're gonna play rares, I'd almost rather just fully convert into Blitz and get a little bit of access. I feel like most of the rares, and maybe I just don't have enough experience with Clash to say this, eloquently, but I feel like most of the rares aren't making that much of a difference that I feel like I'd still rather either just be all in commons or just get a little bit more power and throw some majestics in. If it was something like, hey, you can have like rares and majestics but no legendary equipment, sure, maybe that may mix things up a little bit. But at this point, I think, I would sit there and say, personally, if I had the option between Commoner or Clash, I would choose Commoner, and then if it was Blitz or Clash, I would choose Blitz. And things like that.
That's totally fair. It's totally fair. I mean, you're the commoner guy. I would assume you choose commoner. All right.
It'd be really weird if I said I hate commoner. And I was like, through this.
Now, Chris, this is a blast. Ton of fun hanging out with you, chatting with you, and this is a great conversation. I know the buds are going to really enjoy it. Now, can you please plug all of your things?
Yeah, sure. First, again, thanks for having me on. I know that we've talked, quite a bit now here, on and off. So it's been nice to kind of get onto the show and be able to chat a little bit more. It's always a pleasure. So again, thanks for just having me. So if you're looking to kind of find me, the biggest biggest place you're going to find me is on Twitter. It's at Smithel Gaming. If you're looking to come hang out with me in person, I would strongly recommend you come to the what's it called? The Pittsburgh Brawl, and that's again in association with the Realm Games. I got converted to a Battle Hardened. It is May 27th through 28th. Green Tree Sports Cards, Realm Games. They're going to be putting it on. I know it's like something like $5,000 in cash prizes. If you've ever met John and Keith, they're absolute monsters when it comes to additional prizing, things like that. So it should be a really, really fun time. I know that I'll be there both days, probably Friday, Saturday, Sunday as well. You've hung out with us, even though we all live locally in Pittsburgh, there'll probably be a house or a hotel or something that we're all staying at. Just that way we don't have to drive back to home. But it'll be a lot of fun. That's where you can come find me in person. If you want to support the league, we do have a Patreon. It is patreon.com/FACB, Flesh and Common Blood. My Twitter has the link to the Discord server. If you have any interest in playing Commoner, please come check us out. Come say hi. The community is amazing. It's a lot of fun. We're always in need of subs. Between seasons, often we'll try to, do a tournament here or there for people to play in. So it's a good time just, by anybody that likes it. But again, Twitter, number one place. I try to talk to everybody, hang out with anybody that just wants to hang out. So do that, or come to Pittsburgh, come play in our armories. We have like 6 going a week, 5 or 6 a week right now. So there's a good chance you'll find us or many other people there.
Absolutely, and I implore everyone to check it out. I had a blast playing the league, and you should definitely check out the Discord. You all can continue to find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. If you're not, go check out the YouTube. Trying to get those subscribers up, and then the Buds Discord. It's a great place to hang out. A lot of great people there. And the Patreon that I mentioned at the top of the show, take a look at that. And finally, speaking of subs, Chris, or hoagies, I always like to end the show talking about food. So tell me about some food that you enjoy, preferably from Pittsburgh.
So Matt has given me strong instructions to tell you Hofbrauhaus is the place to be at. But if you're asking me personally, I mean, Pittsburgh is known for a lot of things. One of the things that we do have in abundance here is Polish food. And I am a sucker for all things Polish food. Heck, I mean, if I have to say my favorite food, though, I would probably say pierogi. There's nothing better than a good sweet cabbage pierogi. Right now, I mean, I make them myself personally, like homemade pierogi. We do like buffalo chicken ones, mashed potatoes, all that kind of good stuff. So, you hit me with a plate of pierogies, and I will gladly, be your best friend for a long time. So, definitely come Pittsburgh. Come during like Polish days, all that good stuff. You'll have a good time in the city.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And I'll be honest with you, Chris, I'm happy you did not say Permani Brothers. I was at one last night, and it's just okay. I'm gonna
It's
say,
okay.
yeah.
It's a little overrated. I mean, I get it now. Now, I will say a good chicken salad, like throw French fries and things like that on a salad, like a buffalo chicken salad, and you're doing good. But yeah, Pittsburgh, you've got to understand there's going to be coleslaw or French fries on everything you eat.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Now, thank you again, Chris. This was a lot of fun. Now, everyone, thank you for listening, and have a good week.